States and cities across the nation are pushing for just cause eviction protections that would make landlords' leases pointless. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting topic for you today, and it's going over the topic of just cause eviction protections. Okay, now in some places they call it good cause eviction protections. And what it really is it is a way for states to say, hey, we are going to dictate the reasons why a landlord can terminate their lease. Okay, and when I say terminate the lease, I mean let a lease end. So when they say they want to put just cause eviction protections in place, they want to end what is known as a no cause eviction. Now, I don't consider it an eviction when after a 12-month term, if a tenant signed a 12-month lease contract, I do not renew the lease. But in some jurisdictions, they do. They say, oh, well, that is an eviction. You're evicting that tenant. Like, no, the tenant agreed to only stay here for 12 months. Now, it is up to me as a landlord. I should be able to choose whether or not I want this tenant to continue to stay here, if I want to continue to use this property as a rental property. And it shouldn't be up to the government or the tenant themselves because they do not have the best interest of the property owner in mind, okay? But these jurisdictions, more and more throughout the entire country are putting these laws into place. And, I wanted to go have an overview of the whole topic because I go over this topic a lot and I don't always clarify exactly what these different laws are saying. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. So landlords who are watching this video, do you already have good cause or just cause eviction protections in the area where you invest or where you live? I'm just curious, what we're dealing with out there right now. And obviously there are ways around these laws, but you have to be sure to follow the laws because a lot of small landlords in particular are getting caught up. And I don't like seeing small landlords getting sued or losing thousands of dollars in fines because of ridiculousness. Okay, so anyway, let's get into this article. This article is coming from sourcenm.com, and it says, some states to landlords, you can't evict tenants without a good reason. Just cause policies are gaining momentum amid the housing crisis. Yeah, and like they mentioned right there in the title, right, these laws, they're becoming more popular nowadays because there is a housing crisis. There's a shortage of affordable housing in particular, and they think that, oh, if we prevent the landlord from being able to remove these tenants, well, that will somehow make housing more affordable or more available to the people who need it. No, you know what, I don't know what their logic is, but maybe they'll get into that as we go through the article. Okay. Buffalo, New York. For years, Charlene Redrick worked double shifts to make sure she made rent each month. The 64-year-old nursing home aide always paid on time, even at the height of the pandemic. But in 2022, Redrick's landlord moved to evict her from the 3-bedroom apartment she shared with her granddaughter and infant great-grandson. The landlord wanted to sell the building, Redrick said, and thought it would show better if it were vacant. Redrick initially planned to fight the eviction, knowing she wouldn't find another 3-bedroom apartment she could afford. But I just gave up, she said. I didn't want to fight anymore. Redrick has since moved to a smaller apartment and begun fighting for something else. This year, housing advocates in New York State mounted a fierce campaign in support of a once obscure policy called just cause eviction, which requires that landlords provide a valid reason, a just cause such as unpaid rent or property damage, for removing tenants. Such policies aim to increase housing stability and prevent arbitrary, retaliatory, or discriminatory evictions. So, they say that they hope that this helps prevent arbitrary, retaliatory, or discriminatory evictions, right? But the truth of the matter is that it will prevent almost all evictions for anything other than just straight non-payment of rent, right? And even in cases of non-payment of rent, landlords will have to jump through so many hoops that it's going to be darn near impossible. Okay, that is the real truth, right? What they want to do is replace the current, way that evictions are done with a pretty much permanent eviction moratorium. And they think that, oh, well, this will they claim, I'm sorry, that this will prevent discriminatory. You know what? Those weren't the problem. Those weren't the problem. Okay. The real issue is that landlords had a lot of bad tenants in their units, right? Bad tenants, horrible tenants that we did not have a one of the defined reasons to get rid of. So rather than going through the hoops and all that, at the end of their lease term, we just did not renew their leases. That is the truth. Okay? That is the truth in 99% of these cases. And then the 1% make up the garbage that they are supposedly fighting for. And it doesn't help these people. They're sitting there and they're like, oh, well, I paid everything on time and everything was right. Well, you know what? The landlord needed the building empty to sell it. Okay? It's not your fault, but you don't have a right to stay there forever. The landlord should have the opportunity to empty this building out and get out of the rental business because he doesn't want to be in it anymore. Okay? And I don't know what you're thinking. You think you have some sort of a right to stay there even though the landlord doesn't want to be in the rental business anymore? Well, what, are you out of your mind? You can't force this landlord to stay in the business. Good Lord. Like the entitlement of these tenants. If you want a house, buy a house. If you want your own property, you have to buy your own property. Like I know houses are expensive, but there's condos out there, there's co ops out there, there's townhouses out there. There's other ways to get into property ownership. And I never understood why these tenants will fight so hard for the landlord to keep them in this place for cheap and then never even try to make an effort to buy anything of their own so that they have no chance, zero chance of being evicted. But the problem is they actually would have a chance of being evicted because the bank doesn't have to play by the same rules. So if they don't make their mortgage payment on time, guess what? The bank can foreclose on them and kick them out. So yeah, the landlords might have to jump through certain hoops and accept all this nonsense. But hey, you know what? I feel like what this really is these people, they want socialism. They want the government to take care of them. They want someone else to pay their bills for them. And in this case, it's always going to be the landlord. Since 2019, California, Oregon, and Washington have all adapted just or good cause policies, while Colorado, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York considered them. More than 20 cities, including Baltimore, Boston, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C., also have adopted some form of just cause protections, often over the objections of landlords. And I'm going to stop after that one paragraph because I want you to pay attention to where all those cities are located, okay? We're talking about Colorado, Connecticut, Maryland, New York have all considered them. California, Oregon, and Washington have all adopted them. And Boston, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. So these are very, blue, left-leaning, Democrat, majority cities have all considered these things or implemented them already. Okay, cities and states. So that should be a sign right there that, hey, these are the areas that are in particular looking at these sort of laws. Now, you can look at smaller areas within even states that are more conservative. So, for example, Kansas City itself is very, much more progressive than the rest of Missouri. I mean, it's just the fact, right? They're going to vote for laws such as this in a place like Kansas City. Now, I invest in Kansas City. Fortunately, the state helps keep them in check. Otherwise, I would have to worry about these sort of things being implemented where I invest as well. So, that's why I tell landlords throughout the entire country, look out for this sort of stuff. What you're seeing that's going on in New York, in California, and, these big major cities on the coast, it is coming. It is coming, and we have to fight against it, and we have to fight hard. Landlord and real estate groups argue that the policies would make it more difficult to remove problem tenants and adapt to changing business conditions and could make the housing shortage worse by pushing some to stop offering rentals altogether. Just cause protections likely will be tested as tenants lose pandemic era welfare benefits and housing costs continue to increase. While evictions fell sharply during the COVID-19 pandemic, they have since returned to or exceeded normal levels in many places, according to Princeton University's Eviction Lab, which tracks filings in 10 states and more than 30 cities. And the second paragraph I just read right there, it hinted at the truth. Okay, they're after they threw those eviction moratoriums out, after all that free government money dried up and evictions returned to normal, now they're looking for a way to permanently implement those plans and make it so that landlords are unable to evict those tenants and give these people a permanent welfare benefit. And that is exactly what these good cause and just cause eviction protections do. In fact, some places are actually tying rent control into it, okay? And making it so that if you try to increase the rent over a certain percentage level, then that is considered a attempted eviction. And therefore, the eviction protections, they start taking place, right? So that way you are unable to increase the rent over a certain percentage level. And so, like tying rent control to it, basically what they're doing is they are trying to strip us of our property rights. They're trying to implement government price controls. They're pushing these very socialist, very far left leaning progressive policies. And it's going to be a nightmare for the landlords. But these tenants, they think that, oh, this is going to be good for them long term. And just like it said, these landlords are saying, hey, it's going to stop development. It's going to stop us landlords from wanting to offer our properties for rent. And it's going to make it a lot harder for them to find housing, especially affordable housing. So, what do you think of these just cause and good cause eviction protections? Please put a comment down below. And if you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel for more real estate investing and landlord news.